Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio, where top performers share their secrets to help you achieve your personal and your professional goals. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my amazing guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights that are aimed to take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast really is a must listen. And again, it's because of my guests. So whether you're tuning in for entrepreneurial tips, career advice, or personal development strategies, get ready to turn inspiration into action, challenges into triumphs, and dreams into reality. In other words, take notes, lots of notes. So today I welcome to the show the founder of Strategic Point Marketing, Joshua Ramsey. He has experience and expertise in areas such as search engine optimization, SEO. He has been a Google partner, Bing certified partner, and HubSpot certified partner since the mid-2010s. He's been around for a while. He joins us today to share his very deep knowledge of digital marketing practices, and I have questions. So welcome to Your Partner in Success Today Radio. Sorry, Joshua. Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
I told you in the green room, I've got questions. You know, this is such a big, we've got shifts all over the place with AI and how we're marketing and how we're building strategic ways to, help other people. It's kind of messy out there right now. It's a little bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think they say knowledge is power, but sometimes power in the wrong hands goes in the wrong direction, right? So sometimes people think that they can use AI to solve problems or execute marketing and go down certain roads that they feel like will help them. But in the end, a lot of times they're doing more damage than good, but they don't see it yet, right? It's just one of those things that you live through it and you kind of know what's coming when you've been through it. But yeah, you got to be careful with the new toys that are out in the world, trying to use them in marketing the wrong way.
We've been talking a lot about that on this podcast. Listen, I've been around probably as long as you have. I started my business in 2001, and my podcast is now 16 years old. So I've been around and, online for quite a while, and I'll see things popping up and I'm wondering, look, this is a great tool, but where's your common sense? Where's your critical thinking? What are you doing? And the problem with just jumping in my opinion, just jumping into a tool that you really don't understand or haven't taken the time to work with it can do some long-term damage to your brand.
Yeah, the old saying is good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. And really, AI and the way tools in AI are used now, you're doing the same thing. But you also have to think about the human element of this. AI will write a code for you. It will produce the code based on your parameters, but now someone has to go put that code into place. And when the code is not put into place properly, you might as well not even spend any time producing the code or that algorithm because it's not going to be used. So I use that as a simplified explanation, but it's the same thing when it comes to, say, design. If the design doesn't match what your marketing message should be, and it's not placed in the right place, meaning the tactical placement of your strategic message, it doesn't do you any good. So there's just so many little things that I do as a fractional chief marketing officer for companies that help them create better systems around how to use the tools, because they can make you more effective, but they can't really replace the human element and the logic that needs to be in place before you start using that tool.
Exactly. And in our green room, our virtual green room, we were talking a bit about this. So let's kind of revisit that since we didn't record it for this, but we were talking about no planning. Listen, I see so many, you see this a lot on Facebook, and I kind of lurk around in podcast groups and social media groups, and I'm watching some of them going, you don't know what you're doing, do you? Do you have a plan? Does your has your client talked with you about their strategy, what they need? They're just kind of spitballing, some of them.
Yeah, I see this so many times a month, a day, a year. Almost everyone that I speak with at conferences that come up and talk to me afterwards, we talk about what's the plan. And ultimately, here's why a lot of people don't like marketing. They don't like ad agencies, and they just float from agency to agency with frustration. And the reason that is primarily is that they don't have a plan. They have an expectation. They want leads. They want sales. They want money, right? If we think about why we're in business and why we do what we do in the business world, it is to make money. So when we look at that, you have to look at the trail of how you're going to make that money and how you implement it. But the expectation is I'm going to spend X amount of dollars to this ad agency, whether that's 500 or 5,000 or 50,000, then you have this expectation, unspoken oftentimes, of I've spent this money, I have an expectation, go. And then there's no connection in between how the steps should be executed along the way to get there. And that's where the agility has to come in of when do you modify? Because it's easy to say, hey, I'm going to start a company, I'm going to run ads, I'm going to put it on Meta, which is Facebook or Instagram, and I'm going to push go, and people are going to call me and I'm going to sell a product. Right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it sounds simple, but is that really your plan? No, it's got to be more defined than just that simplicity. Like that's your very high level, but there's some fundamentals to understand. And I would say the first fundamental is understanding the difference in between your strategic message and the tactical placement of that message.
Let's talk about the differences there, because I think what you said is really important. And I have found in all my years of doing business that if the client and the contractor are not working together at least once a week for at least the first month or two, there is no strategy, there is no plan, because it's not being communicated or refined.
A big thing also in that for larger companies is that larger companies have the hardest time making that big jump, turning from the mom and pop of even 100 employees at times to getting to that next level of we're now going to be corporate. And I work with a lot of clients that live in that world where they've been mom and pop and they're trying to become corporate. And there's a lot of growing pains within that. But I'm living in the reality right now with a fantastic company. They're very well put together. They have great people in the company. And a lot of these people have been around for a long time in the company. So that says a lot about ownership and leadership of the company. But right now, they've grown so much that because they're so much in the weeds, they don't understand how to get out of the weeds. So they have people in meetings that don't need to be there. And the owner came in the other day and said, if this person doesn't need to be in this meeting, get out of the meeting. If they need to be here for the first 5 minutes, cover what you need to cover in the first 5 minutes and get them out. But they're trying to get there, but they're having a difficult time. But this now goes to your strategic planning when it comes to marketing of do you have the right people, right? The book Good to Great talks about the right people in the right bus in the right seats. And when you look at it that way, with that company, I've been working with them to try to make shifts and put people in the right seats that are better suited for what they're doing. That's part of the planning, because if you'll indulge me for a minute, I want to make sure that everyone understands this part of strategic message versus tactical marketing. Your brain typically works one of two ways. You're either a picture person or you're a numbers person. And I'm simplifying this. but you can understand the difference of each, but you are either right brain or you're left brain. And one is pictures, one is data. It's hard to do both very well. But when you look at building a website, what happens is you go and you say, okay, I'm going to build a website. If you look at a website right now, what do you see? Pictures.
Pictures, right. And honestly, calls to action. We have
Well,
very limited time. So those pictures have to tell a story. Like, hey, come over
right.
here.
But see, Denise, I love where you're going because you just went fast track on what everyone does. Instead of quickly but methodically breaking it down, there's actually three brains that have to go together. You just took the third brain, which is the strategist that helps make the decisions of the call to action and when to change them. You went like a lot of business owners do from a design and then you went straight to call to action. But when we talk about design, the design has to feed the user, just like you said, of we're limited on time. Because it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's what's perceived by your audience.
What's in it
So
for
the
them? I
design
wish more
has
people
to
understood
communicate.
this. What's in it for them? It's not about you. Get over that idea.
Yeah. But then you go to the third brain that we haven't mentioned yet, which is the coder. But the coder is just as important because how do the pictures move? How do the graphics happen? Is it a lazy load? Does it help speed? Because now the coder has to work with the strategist, and the strategist needs to dictate to the coder, this is my expectation of what the design should do. So that's where, if you don't break down those three different brains, you are never going to take your message and your possibilities, your business to the next level. It won't happen because if you don't have those three different people, you're trying to force someone that's only good at one of those things into all the holes. So I'll tell you right now, I'm not the greatest coder, but I'm a really good strategist, but I'm not a great designer. But I can look at design and know what's going to work and not based on the years of experience that I have. I started working in the web world in 2003. I started working in the media world, selling print advertising and such in the 90s. So I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and I've understood the messaging more, but that brought me to that level of I'm a good strategist, I'm a decent coder, and I'm a decent designer, but I'm not all three. And I don't think anyone out there ever can be all three because those are very different skill sets that people sharpen over the years.
They really are. And listen, I think in pictures. I think in word pictures. I am a website designer. I work in WordPress. I build them in my sleep, honestly. I have been known, this is no joke, to be standing over my stove, making a gumbo and building a website right there at the stove. I can see it. I don't even have to, well, I'll go write it down eventually, but I've already built it in my head, the navigation, the images, the calls to action, what's in it for the audience. And I'm just blessed to be able to do that. But there are some parts of that journey, building that website and building the messaging behind it. I have a team. They are better than I am. I hire them because they're better than I am, and I depend on them to point me in the right direction.
And that's it right there. So when a business owner is going to go hire an agency or hire a company or a person, I think that part of the plan is the first step, which is, okay, Denise, Josh, I'm considering hiring you. Tell me about your team. Who's going to be working on this? What is their skill set? I'm working. It happened this morning. I had a meeting with a client, and I loved that I've taught them the right questions to ask. Because when I started working with them about 2 years ago, they didn't ask any questions. They were blindly trusting. They were blindly walking through and navigating the marketing world while that's not what they do. And now, today, this morning, we had a meeting and they said, hey, can we go ahead and see the resumes of these people that we're considering hiring? And I look at it and I'm like, wow. But their words were, Josh, we have you in place for a reason. If you like this one, go with it. But we would like to see resumes if you have the time and we have the on the Gantt chart. of what we're trying to execute. If we have the time and we can get the resumes of this person and maybe a couple others, we'd like to see the resumes. I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, let's get you the resumes because that's great that they're going to be that interactive because in the beginning, 2 years ago, they weren't. And they found themselves in a hole. They found themselves in the depths of no leads, no volume, no business, and a website that they had handed to a company that tanked them. And now we're slowly building it back up and we're gaining more and more momentum. But it's been a difficult battle to get them from where they were when I started to where we are now. So,
And I'm guessing this is an e-commerce website.
not an e-commerce website. They're actually general contractors, but they went
Oh,
to a big agency and they worked with one point person that was not a senior point person. And that company within 6 months took them from having somewhere around, I think it was in the range, they're a small outfit, but they were in the range of around 1,000 words ranked per sim rush tracking. And they went down to about 100.
oh,
So they tanked.
yeah, tanked is the proper word. Yeah, that's you might as well have just shut it down and started fresh. Oh my
But
goodness.
so this is now another good example as we're talking, and my brain is going through this of when do you make that decision? Well, agencies that are hired will oftentimes tell you, well, it takes 3 to 6 months to see results. Not really. If you watch the metrics, every time you make a change, I look at it and say it's a throttle. So if you're level, that's where you're at. When you make a change, what I always want to see is it going up or it's going down. I don't want it to stay the same. Because if you go build a new page, if you change keywords, if you do something and you submit it to Google, I want to see it go down or I want to see it go up. Number one, that tells the business owner that something happened. That's important to know. Okay. Number two, if it went up, you did well. Do it again, do it more, and do it faster. If it went down, at least you can now evaluate whatever you did didn't give you the output that you wanted. It doesn't take 3 months to see that you're losing rankings. Don't respond in 1 week, 7 days. No, you got to give it a little bit of time, but you should be watching it. And in 7 days, if your numbers and metrics are moving down, go back and start to watch it every day. In 7 days, if it goes up, let it ride for another 14. So there's no exact pinpoint of when you pull the plug, but there should be a pinpoint of KPI of I'm going to go check this in 3 days, 7 days, and then after 7 days, make a decision of let's check it in 2 weeks, let's check it in 30 days. Because you don't want to set something and just let it run and see what happens. But you do have to kind of watch, depending on what you're doing, you have to watch and decide when is it the right time to make a change and what is that change going to be. I'm always looking 5 steps down the road. I'm not looking at the next two. And most people are like, oh, I'm all at you got to do these first two. Yeah, but if it doesn't go this way, what am I going to do next? Right. And that's the agility of a good marketing strategy. And that's just so everyone understands, that's what a fractional CMO does. That's what I do. You need an agency to go execute. And Denise, we've talked a little bit about what you do, and you're a great executor. You're a great designer. And it sounds like you may have some of these people. We have not had all those conversations, but what I do for companies and agencies is I help them with the vision of the strategy. When do we make the change? When do we become agile? And then wrapping this part of the conversation back up a little bit, back to the beginning point, is this client trusted that agency too much. And 6 months went by, and then they finally called me and said, hey, we've known you, we've known about you for a couple of years, we've followed you, we've gone to your conferences, and now we're ready to talk to you. So I went and I looked, and I'm like, guys, you should have called me a year ago. You wouldn't have had all these headaches.
I've had those where I had to shut something down and just start fresh for a client. It was such a mess that there was these giant agencies. Listen, they started somewhere and God bless them, but they're out of control when it comes to the client. The client's like, I don't even understand what you just said to me. Why is nothing happening? Who can I talk to? And in this one particular one, he got a different person every single time.
Yeah.
And then I stepped in and raised holy hell, and it still didn't work. So we just shut it down and started over.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to that right now as well, because I think this is a key point for business owners to understand. And that is, you must own all of your marketing. You must own it. You should be the 100% owner, and everyone else is 99% in down. And there's many reasons for that. But today I have another meeting with an agency who took ownership of an ad campaign and will not turn it back over to the business owner. So the business owner is now held hostage by this other company because they haven't done it. Now, today, just because I'm having that meeting doesn't mean it's the first time. I'm here to tell you this happens about twice a year at minimum, where an agency has built something, took control, and it's in the contract that the owner doesn't own it. So the owner basically is renting from that agency. Well, let's say that it's gone well, but then they get a new project manager. So let's say that you're with Red Cup Marketing. I'm making this up. Sorry if Red Cup Marketing is out there. I'm just looked at a Red Cup and that's what I used. So Red Cup Marketing, and you're working with George at Red Cup Marketing. And George does great. But George retires. George moves to another company. And now they give you Philip. So now you're working with Philip and you don't like Philip. And Philip's not listening. And Philip's not doing the things that George did. And you keep complaining. Well, guess what? You're stuck with Red Cup if they own your website. You're stuck with them if they own your ads, because you can't take what's been working and move it to a new agency. You're stuck with that company. You're tied to them. And that's not a good way for a business owner to do business. So I plead with anyone hearing this, do not make that mistake. That's part of your planning process of make sure that you own all of your marketing from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And as a web designer, web developer, I find, and this is prevalent. Listen, I'm gonna have to go wander off a little bit here to make my point, but yesterday I put 5 new tires on my car. That's always a shocking, expensive proposition, particularly for a woman. You know, we don't know anything about what's the best, and as a rule, we don't. So I got a hold, thank goodness, of a very reputable company here in my little town. And I spent 3 hours there yesterday. It was one of the best experiences that I've had in a very long time. I mean, they made sure that I was comfortable from start to finish. They got me the best pricing. They made sure there was no extra anything added on except a lug nut that they had to actually cut off. And it's a Range Rover, so it cost another $25. But I was there for 3 hours. I was completely happy the whole time. I finally said, listen, it's a beautiful spring day. In the deep south, we have 2 seasons, hot and hotter than hell. This was a pretty spring day. So I said, I think I'm going to go outside and sit on the steps. 3 of these guys will bring you a chair. No, I'm just going to. 3 of them tried to bring me this chair, this chair. Well, how about this? No, I'm going to sit on the steps, but thank you. They were so great. And I asked him, I said, listen, where can I go leave you a review? And I put on my marketing hard hat and said, what do you mean you're not on Facebook? You don't have a business page? No. Are you on Yelp? No. Our company owner doesn't really like social media. All right, everybody gather around. You need to be here, there. And here's why you need to be. And I went to Better Business Bureau and I left them a, glowing recommendation. But I said, you've got to be out there. Listen, when I'm looking for a restaurant to go, meet up with friends and we have restaurant suggestions, we all land at Facebook. It's just the way it happens. So you need to have some, but my point is that as a web developer, and they do have a website, but how are they driving traffic to it? They're not using social media. They don't have a strategy. They don't have apparently any kind of goal other than you find them somehow or another. That's not a strategy. So I'm off my soapbox now. You can take over.
No, I mean, you're right. Now you're going to the second part of marketing, which is tactical placement, right? You have to have the strategic message, your call to action, your design, all the creative. Now it's where you put that creative. It's how you get
Right.
the eyeball, right? This is the second step to it. So where you place it, now you're considering things like text messaging, emails, uh, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok. That then somewhat needs to shift back to the strategic side, which is now building out your avatar or your persona of the buyer. Who are you buying? Who are you selling to? Who's going to buy this product? Find that platform. So, for instance, I work with a drug trial company. They're a drug trial science company. And with this company, one thing that we often consider is the type of study in the age range is where we advertise. So we have some adolescent studies, such as ADHD study. And with this adolescent study, we want to advertise to the adolescents. So we look at the range of TikTok. We look at Reddit. We advertise on those platforms where that age bracket of 13 to 18 is going to be consuming media. Then we have younger child studies, and the child studies are kids in between the ages of 5 to 10. And I'm using ranges here, but the 5 to 10, they don't consume media. So we then have to logically think through, where are their parents? How do we advertise to their parents? So now we're looking at their age and we're looking at either Facebook or Instagram. We don't advertise on TikTok. So it's real easy to burn money when you haven't built out who your persona is and then strategically place your message so that way that persona is able to pick that information up. You know, it would, how frustrating is it in life when you go to Amazon and you type in bicycle and all that shows up are roller skates? Take that in for a minute. You typed in bicycle and you see roller skates. That doesn't happen, right? But yet, if you are trying to advertise to buy $1 million home on TikTok, not the best strategy, because the TikTok user major demographic is much younger. And then you have to logically think through, are people that are going to spend $1 million to buy a home going to be on TikTok? So it could be debatable and argued that will that buyer that'll buy $1 million home be on TikTok? And some people go, yeah, they're all over. They're all over. Okay, I'm not going to argue that. Sure, I'll let you win that one. However, I'm going to now change the question slightly. How many buyers of that $1 million home will be on TikTok versus Instagram or Facebook?
Or
There's
even
going to be more.
Pinterest. You know, Pinterest is, obviously it's nothing but pictures. And people go there. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest. A lot of us do. I get recipes over there. I wanted to look at maxi skirts of all things the other day, found a whole bunch of them. You know, Pinterest, if you are heavily geared towards showing people what you do, it's not a bad place to be.
Yeah. So, but even, whatever platform you decide to use, now it becomes data testing, looking at the metrics of how many impressions, but more importantly, how much engagement did you have? It's interesting that some people haven't paid attention as much as I believe they should, that Google runs a program called analytics. Some people don't even know this exists, but analytics tracks your website, and analytics as a whole is looking at the engagement of users to whatever advertising that you put out there. That's analytics in general. Google Analytics is what you put on your website. For those listeners that don't know what this is, it's Google Analytics, and you put it on your website. And the interesting thing that I don't believe has been spoken enough by marketing people out there that I teach about all the time, so it blows me away that they don't, is Google Analytics. One of the biggest changes is they now track the engagement rate of a user on people's websites. Now think about this for a second at a little bit of a deeper level. If Google is tracking the engagement of how much time a user spends on a website, I believe that we have to give a lot of credit that it's important to Google because they're tracking it. Therefore, the decisions that you make and the strategic execution of your website and the modifications should be all centered around what Google is tracking. I don't know why a company like Google would do something without the methodical execution that they put into place. And that is one of the biggest changes, from the Google Universal, which lived through 10 to 12 years, to now what's called GA4. It's the fourth edition of Google Analytics, GA4. And now that they're tracking user engagement, I don't see any other reason why they would track it other than they care.
Oh, they are really trying, as far as I can tell, and I've been watching them forever as well. They're gathering data, no question, but they're also in many, many ways putting that data to good use by helping you track your own data. So it makes sense. Listen, I've got a whole bunch of questions for you. Let's talk about the growing significance, and we're going to switch, topics here a bit. So let's talk about the growing significance of podcasts and marketing strategies. Listen, I'm a podcaster. I've been doing this a long time. So my question is, and this is for businesses, how are businesses leveraging podcasting effectively?
I think it really comes down to, again, your strategic message and then tracking the data. I've looked at a lot of different podcasts. I watch different podcasts. I listen to different podcasts. And it's interesting to watch the metrics that are output by the core podcast group and who the followers are, and then watching how much you can engage them into your website page and into your social media to increase that following, right? I don't know if I'm giving you the exact answer you're looking for, but I think that podcasts, they're a great use of sharing and displaying information, but I think oftentimes they're not marketed well based on the information that they give. And I take this a little bit to social media, because in social media, one of the things that I teach that I've seen become very effective in social media is you have 3 seconds to interrupt somebody, to break them from swiping to the next photo, or scrolling down their news feed on Facebook or whatever platform they're using, Pinterest, Instagram, whatever it is. You have 3 seconds. Then you have 6 seconds to engage them. And I think that 6 seconds is where people really miss, because it's easy to throw out a message that maybe they're going to stop and look at. But that next 6 seconds, equaling your first 9, has to be very engaging. It has to really engage, meaning pull someone in and make them stop and want to know more. Then your next 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, is your education. If you do an outstanding job clearly communicating what makes you superior to anyone else, now you move into the offer, the fourth step, which is now your call to action. Here's where you should go next. Here's why you should do it. And I think when podcasts market themselves in that focus, those are the ones that I've seen move up the rankings and grow.
Everybody wants to be a podcaster right now, and I am a firm believer in getting your voice heard. Sadly, though, I see way too many people, we're going to do this, and they're so excited, and 3 weeks, 3 months later, they're gone. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have a strategy. Sometimes they didn't even have a website. They just got caught up in the excitement of it all, because it is very exciting. It's not easy, y'all. I'm going to tell you right now, having a podcast, not easy, but it is well worth everything you put into it. But they're gone, and they're disappointed. In some cases, they're just flat out, they're heartbroken, but they didn't plan it. No strategy.
Yeah, I mean, podcasts, in my opinion, is not much different than running any business, right?
Exactly. And to me, and I'll say this over and over again, podcasting is in many ways marketing 101. You get your voice out there, you get on, you make sure that people can find you on social media, you give the reasons why they should find you. Your podcast will grow, and it'll grow quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've done it.
Oh, yeah. But I did it by accident. I have to be honest about this. The first time that I was ever on a podcast, I didn't know I was. This was, back before anybody had ever heard of one. And this one, she's a podcaster herself, and we're still in touch. And she got in touch with me. She said, Denise, I'd like to do an interview with you. And I said, sure. She said, well, listen, just call this number. And I thought she was going to record it and then, transcribe it and then put it out on a blog. A couple days later, I get this, hey, here you are. And I went, what? I had no idea what it was. And then I heard my voice for the first time. And then I just went, oh, geez. Because to me, I sound like I'm about to sing happy birthday, Mr. President. I think I sound ridiculous. But I was caught up in the whole podcasting thing. And here I've been. It was an accident, pure and simple.
But I mean, it's been said that the person that sits on their couch is never going to make a fortune. But
Yeah.
the person that gets up and just starts walking around the city has an opportunity. So when you look at it that way, now all of a sudden you have to realize sometimes it is right place, right time. Sometimes it is you just did one or two steps in the right direction, or you waited an extra 5 minutes, in that office, and something good happened. And that's just being fortunate. That's just being lucky. And I
Paying
think
attention.
in sports and in business and in life, sometimes you just got to have a little bit of luck. And sometimes you can make that luck, and sometimes you just got to get it. And, it's just what it is.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to switch. I've got so many questions. I wrote them down. It's like, okay, how many more can I get in there before we have to, our hour is up? But could you walk us through the process of nurturing leads and guiding people through a marketing funnel? Because a marketing funnel is different than a website. And a lot of people don't, they'll say, well, what's a landing page and what's this? What? Let's try to break things down a bit for people so they can go, oh, I need this component in my marketing, or I need to start asking questions about this component.
Yeah, so you're one of the few podcasts that I have been on that have asked me such a fantastic question, I have to tell you.
Thank you.
It
It
it's a
just came out of my
very
head.
listen, it's a very solid question, and I think you're right. And I'm going to try to stay on track, but the first thing I'm going to say here is you have to identify your product and your line that you're selling. So, for instance, let's say you're a jewelry store. Well, as a jewelry store, what you need to know and pay attention to is which products is the prospect interested in and not. I'm going to use Nike for a second. I subscribe to Nike. I like looking at their shoes. I don't care anything about their clothes. Yet Nike still pushes their clothes to me. Now I assume that Nike being Nike, and I don't know personally their CMO, but I have to assume that they're still trying. There are people out there that look at the shoes, buy the shoes, and every now and then go buy the clothes. But the majority of what Nike gives me on my consumption of their messaging is shoe related. So when I'm looking at the shoes, what I don't want to be advertised are hats and clothes and pants. So when you, as whoever you are out there that hears this and is paying attention to this, the first step is identifying what your prospect is interested in, and more importantly, what they are absolutely not interested in. A quick tangent here is something that I like to talk about in conferences, which is out of 100% of the market that's going to buy from you, 20% is always going to love you. They're going to be loyal to you. They're never going anywhere. Don't market to them. The bottom 20% is never going to buy from you. They either don't like you, they don't care for you, they don't like your product. Whatever it is, the bottom 20. Your job in business is to focus on that middle 60% and persuade as many of that middle 60 to buy from you, to move up the scale, down the pipeline, and make a purchase with you and engage. Your communication to that middle 60% starts with, what are they actually interested in? So I went down the jewelry store. I went down the shoe. Now let me use contracting. Contractors typically specialize in whole home remodeling, kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling. Well, it can be a long buying cycle for that. So now we have to look at another piece of the puzzle, which is, what is the average buying time for X product? whatever X product is, a diamond ring because you want to get married. Okay. There's a timetable that you walk. You don't think on a larger purchase that you're going to spend 10, 20, $30,000 on. You don't just automatically go out and buy it without looking around. So you have to then nurture that prospect. You have to nurture who it is that you're talking to with the right message at the right time. Now, when we talk about the funnel and how you nurture, consider this. If I send you, whoever's hearing this, if I send you an email every day, you're going to be annoyed and you're going to block me.
Oh, yeah, I would dump you with after the third one.
If I send you once a week, you're going to block me. But now you have to start to consider, should I send it every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks? That decision has to be made based on one of the core foundational pieces that I spoke about in the beginning, which is what is the buying cycle and how can you identify? Now your messaging, I'm giving a lot of information here, so I hope you're following me. Some people may want to go back and re-listen to that, but now all of a sudden you have to try to identify where your buyer is on the buying cycle. There's different ways to do that. You could send out a text if they have subscribed to your text and say, are you looking to buy in the next 3 months, 6, 12, or 24? Sometimes on your initial intake, that can help. One of the things that I've done recently is I've worked with some contractors and we've built online funnels. The online funnel allows a user to come to our website and build the blueprint and get a price quote without even talking to us. Now, a lot of people go, wait, they're on my website. I want to talk to them. I want them to call me and ask for that, not get it for free. And I don't disagree, but if I can increase the engagement rate, first, the engagement rate, that's going to help us with Google and ranking. On top of that, if we can get consumers to go through the funnel, we can see what type of traffic we're driving in. And now we have a more qualified buyer if they get to the end of that funnel and they submit their information to us. On top of that, we can now know exactly what they're looking for and we can communicate in the timetable that is needed for them. And that's just in the contracting world that can cross over to others.
Well, listen, I understand when people say, oh, yeah, but I want to talk to them. And that I was writing as you were talking, and that kind of leads me to what you said, which is very important, is persuasion. Marketing, in my mind, is persuasion. You want to persuade people to pay attention to you, to call you, to purchase from you, to refer you. It's all marketing is persuasion. A lot of people say, oh, marketing is sales. Not necessarily. Those are, they may share some space at the table, but they're not the same. But what you're talking about, and I'm the same way. Listen, I want you to go through my funnel. I want you to go to my website. But what I really want to do is speak with you, because that's where two things happen. I can figure out if I can actually be of assistance to you and if I like you. Because if I don't like you, I won't work with you. That's just written in stone.
But, that goes back to the perception of a website, because it's, Zig Ziglar said for years, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
But that's not true anymore. What's true is the first step of engagement. And the first step is perception. It's not what you say and it's not how you say it. It's what's perceived by your audience. Because sometimes you can have the best intentions, but you say the wrong words, and all of a sudden your intentions are out the window because the perception of the other person is totally thrown off. So how you communicate that information is massive. It's so important on how you communicate it, what's said and how it's said. And you're still not going to win 100% of the time. Last night I had a conversation with somebody and they took what I said to an extreme that was not even close to what I said and what I was intending to say. But their perception was so skewed that that person and I will probably never talk again. And I think all of us have experienced that. And it's just
just
one little thing, right?
And we are going to run out of time shortly. This has been a very fast hour. So, Josh, what are some practical tips for boosting engagement on social media platforms? Because you're talking about connecting, persuasion, marketing, sales. Give us a few practical tips if you can.
Well, the first thing is figure out what's your unique selling position. So it's referred to as the USP, unique selling position. I worked with a realtor not that long ago, and the core focus of working with that realtor, I asked her, what makes you unique? And she said, my story. And I tell my story really well. So I went and I looked at all of her social media. There was nothing about her story on any of her social media. We all have something that's called the inside reality and the outside perception. The inside, I use a story, if you'll indulge me for a second. I'll try to make it short and sweet. But when I met my wife, she looked at my social media. I met her a long time ago on MySpace, and she looked at my social media, and I never really thought about my social media in the way that her and I talked about it over the years to come. And here's what it hit me later in life is that I would go out with my friends to a birthday party, have a beer, hold it up, take a picture, put it on MySpace. The next weekend, I'd go to the lake, have a beer with my buddies, play volleyball, soccer, whatever on the beach, hold a beer, take a picture, put it up. Next time I go to a family event with my brother, we have a glass of wine at dinner. So there's wine, I hold it up, cheers, picture on social media. Next thing you know, what do I look like? An
A
alcoholic,
lush. Yeah.
right?
I'm surprised she
All this
talked to
guy
you. I
does
would
is
have.
party and drink.
Yeah.
But here's what I wasn't showing. I was teaching in the church kids groups. I was volunteering time. I was volunteering my energy to other businesses that were trying to grow. And I was working as part of the security team to keep people safe in our church. I didn't walk around taking selfies because selfies, when MySpace was around, weren't real. Um, but I didn't get those pictures. I didn't ask someone, hey, take a picture of this and let me go think to put this on my MySpace. So my inside reality was that I'm a good guy. I try to do good things. I have good ethics, morals, and values. But the outside perception was the furthest thing from my inside reality. So what's my unique selling position? I needed to shift what that was. I need to better explain my inside reality. So back to the realtor, she looks like everyone else. So on her social media, why would I buy from her when she looks like everyone else? Why am I going to call her and give her an opportunity to pitch me? We don't have time to call 50 different realtors. We're going to just go with whoever we feel like. I just bought a new car, and I have a lot of people that wanted to sell me a new car. I ended up going with a guy because a good buddy of mine introduced me to him. I met him, I liked him immediately, and I bought from him.
Referrals are the
I sold
best.
on time. But now, if you go back and you look at the buying cycle of everything I just said, when you look at your social media, you're trying to advertise on social media, website, a billboard. What's your unique selling position, and how well are you communicating that to now go back to what is the middle 60% perception of your unique selling position?
Understood. And referrals. I'm telling you, that's how I found these tire guys. I, caught up with my next door neighbor and said, "Where do you get your tires?" And he sent me straight to them. I'd never heard of them, but they did a great job. One last question. I know we're bouncing around a bit here, but it's a big topic we're talking about. Josh, what are some of the core values or principles that guide you in your work and your life, and how do you stay true to them?
For
I'm
myself,
speechless. I didn't mean to
yeah,
do
well, I
that.
mean,
Sorry.
it's a good question. Again, a great question. I don't get asked very often in the way that you asked it, but I do say this to people. And for me, I'm just going to speak for myself on this because I believe that's how you pose the question. The way I do business is I just treat people the way I want to be treated, and I do what I say I'm going to do. And I have found in my life and in my experience of life, both in family and in friends and in business, that's actually a rarity nowadays. That people say one thing and then they don't do it. They don't follow through. They can't do it. They're not able to do it, whatever that is. But I just focus on drawing a circle around myself and only working on making the people in that circle better every single day by doing the best I can do. And what that means is when I tell someone I'm going to do it, I do it. And if I can't, I quickly come back and say, I can't do it. And here's my roadblock. Here's what I believe my solutions could be. If we want to explore these, let's explore them. But that's the communication. And ultimately, it just comes back to what I said in the beginning. It comes down for me is my ethics, morals, and values hold true. And that is, I'm going to do what I believe is right, ethical, and moral. What am I doing that's best for whoever is involved in interacting with me? And if I do that, I feel like I'm going to come out on top 90+% of the time. And I've grown my business that way. The majority, most people working with an ad agency stick around for 18 months. The majority of my clients have been with me for more than 3 or 4 years. On the fractional CMO side, most of my clients, it's still a relatively new company. I only started it in 2018, but my average lifespan of a client in the fractional CMO side is over a year. And most CMOs are 3 months. So there's a reason that I have found that it keeps working is because I come in with a logical plan. I treat people the way that they want to be treated and how I would want to be treated. And ultimately, I'll wrap with this is I follow what's spoken in the Bible, which is treat people the way you want to be treated, be good to people, be kind, and love them. And that's where my ethics and morals come from.
The golden rule. It's a great response, and thank you so much. And Josh, I really appreciate your company today, and spending time with you has been a definite pleasure. So would you mind sharing your online presence and your preferred means of contact for those who I can't talk today, those who wish to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Josh Ramsey, and my company is a chief marketing officer. So if you look up Josh Ramsey, fractional CMO, or go to jrcmo.com, you'll find me. One of the things that I'm pretty proud of, I'll share 2 of them that'll help people find me. But one of them is I've been doing online digital media since 2003. There's not one bad review online about me at all. The number one reason is if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, I refund money. Meaning we make a plan, we execute that plan, and if that plan's not executed, I make it right. The other thing I'll say is it's easy to find me. If you type in fractional CMO and then the city name, the major city of most cities in the US, you'll find me on page 1. In Dallas, I'm number 1. In Austin, I'm number 1. In Houston, I'm number 1. In Miami, I'm on top 5. Tampa, I'm top 5. Los Angeles, top 10. Boise, Denver, Salt Lake City, I'm in the top 5 again. So we are really good at executing on SEO, but a lot of that comes from a lot of little pieces that I teach companies how to do. I teach companies how to build systems, and then anyone can run the system, but you have to have the right system. So I appreciate you having me on today. Anyone that wants to reach out, I do free consultations, up to 2 hours of free consultations. They fill out a business evaluation form, and then they set a meeting with me, and I jump on and walk them through, try to help them navigate the crazy world that we all live in today.
Tell people how to find that form.
Just go to jrcmo.com and look for the free 2-hour consultation on the homepage. There's also a live chat that actually comes to my cell phone, so you can actually chat with me there as well.
I saw that. I was on your website this morning. I went, well, that's interesting. And it's interesting because I don't give my cell phone number out ever. There are maybe 10 people in the world, well, 9, my brother passed away, 9 people in the world who have that number. I don't work on my cell phone. I need some privacy, if you will. I say, nope, I'm easy to reach. I have a toll-free number. I have, you can find me here, 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 and here, but you don't get my cell number. That's just a rule. So I saw that and I went, good for him. I'm not doing it, but good for him. So there you go.
Well, the live message comes through to me, but my cell phone's not listed there.
Well, in that case, I might take another look at that. Well, listen, everybody, to our audience, as we conclude today's episode, your feedback means an awful lot to me. If you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. Your input is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to go find Joshua or Josh Ramsey on the web and connect with him. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I will see you next week. Joshua, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.